Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is explicitly for you, the school leader, the academic coordinator, the teacher who knows handwriting is crucial. But you're often left with the big question: why is it the one core skill that so often has no school-wide curriculum?
That is the perfect way to frame it. Today, we're diving into sources that address exactly that. We're looking at how to build whole school proficiency and how that aligns with, major policy shifts.
You mean things like NEP 2020 and the NCF 2023?
Exactly. And we'll explore the real, concrete academic returns you get from a structured whole school program.
Okay, so let's be clear. We're not just talking about neatness or aesthetics today.
Not at all. This is about cognitive strategy.
So what are the immediate stakes here? Why should a principal dedicate precious timetable minutes to this?
Because handwriting isn't a decorative skill. It's a foundational bottleneck. We have to look at the research from cognitive experts like Steve Graham. He argues pretty forcefully that the physical act of forming letters is deeply tied to academic achievement.
So if a child hasn't automated that process,
Their working memory is overloaded, completely overloaded just by the process of writing itself.
okay, let's unpack that for the listener. Say I'm a student writing a complex answer in a history exam. How does struggling with my handwriting actually sabotage my thinking?
It creates a severe cognitive drain. Your brain is meant to be focusing on higher order tasks, right?
Recalling facts, structuring the paragraph.
Finding the right words, organizing your arguments, all of that. But if you're still consciously thinking, okay, how do I loop this G? Or what's the gap between these two letters?
All that mental energy is just gone.
It's diverted from the intellectual task to the purely mechanical one.
And the result is slower writing, less complex answers, and ultimately lower scores.
Exactly. And it's not because the student doesn't know the material. It's because their writing engine is inefficient.
So the goal is automaticity, writing without thinking about writing.
That's it. That frees up the student's mind completely for composition and organization. That's the freedom we're aiming for, and it requires structure.
Let's get right to that. The core problem identified in the source material is this: every subject has a curriculum. Handwriting often doesn't. Why has this gap persisted for so long?
It's honestly astonishing when you think about it. We're talking about the primary way we assess all knowledge.
Right. Look at English, maths, science.
Social sciences, they all have clear syllabi, defined progression paths from grade 1 to 10, and objective assessments. No one questions that structure.
And yet we assess all of that learning through written output.
Yeah.
In notebooks and exams. But the instruction for how to produce that output is, well, it's inconsistent.
That's where the systemic failure lies. The instruction is rarely standardized across the whole school. Too often, teachers are just told to take care of handwriting.
And they do their best. They teach what they were taught.
Of course. But that means a child in class 3 learns one style, and then in class 4, their new teacher might introduce a completely different method.
And the school sometimes makes this worse, right? By changing publishers for copybooks year after year.
Exactly. You're moving from a cursive font one year to a print-based one the next, and maybe back again.
What does that constant change do to a child's learning process?
It's destructive for motor learning. Motor patterns need consistency to stabilize. If the input, the required formation, the spacing, the rhythm keeps changing, those fundamental habits just can't become automatic.
And the outcome is what we see everywhere: inconsistent letters, weak automaticity.
And that critical issue, slower writing speed during exams, when time is everything.
A student might know everything but just runs out of time on the board paper.
It happens all the time. This brings us to a useful analogy for a school leader. Think of your subject curriculum, English, science, maths, as a long, continuous superhighway. It's leading straight to the final exam paper.
The destination is clear: high marks.
Right, but the handwriting is the physical road that carries all that knowledge. And when instruction is inconsistent, that road is broken. It's rough, disconnected.
So students have to slow down, break their concentration.
They can't maintain speed or fluency. The strategic need is to fix the transport system. A structured program, like Writewiz, aims to turn that into one continuous, high-quality road across the student's entire academic journey.
So how does a program like that actually enforce standardization?
It starts by defining the curriculum from LKG all the way up to class 12. It's a full progression. This means standardizing every single element: formation, spacing, alignment, joining, and even speed development.
But many schools might say, oh, our English teachers already cover this. How is this different?
That's a vital question. A structured program recognizes that this is a motor skill. It needs dedicated, focused time separate from content. An English teacher is focused on grammar, on literature. Handwriting can become an afterthought. A dedicated curriculum ensures one shared method, one font, is used across all teachers, all sections, and all academic years. It's the only way to stabilize those motor patterns.
So consistency is really the key.
It is, and it's enforced not just through books, but through deep teacher support. We're talking about initial mastery training, which we call GREM training, plus continuous classroom visits and very clear correction routines.
And what's the measurable result a school should expect?
The result is immediate and it's transferable. You build legibility and speed that moves from the handwriting class into every single subject notebook, and most importantly, into the high-pressure environment of the final exam.
We have to say this because it's important. Teachers work incredibly hard. A program like this simply makes their handwriting instruction predictable, effective, and crucially consistent across the school. It takes the guesswork out of it.
Exactly. And that structure works because it's based on clear, research-backed evidence, specifically about the frequency of practice.
A perfect transition. Let's dive into the science of how often students really need to practice to achieve that mastery.
We really have to shift our perspective. Handwriting is, at its core, a corporeal skill.
Corporeal, meaning of the body.
Precisely. We think of maths as an intellectual skill, but handwriting is much more like learning a classical dance, or mastering a musical instrument, or excelling in a sport. It requires disciplined, sustained practice to build that muscle memory. It is a physical habit.
That's a crucial distinction. We can't treat it like memorizing dates. It's physical training.
It is, and the research guides us on the optimal timing for that training. The sources point to a model for this. They call it the 23-2-1 framework.
23, 2, 1. Okay, break that down for us. What's the rationale behind each number?
It refers to session frequency per week, with each session being about 20 minutes. Daily practice. That's the fastest route to building strong motor patterns. This is ideal for the early years, LKG, UKG. When they're first learning the forms, repetition is everything.
So if they practice daily, the brain just accepts it as a permanent movement much faster. What about an upper primary?
Then we can move to the next tier, 3 sessions per week. This gives you fast change, but also, crucially, robust protection against forgetting. It keeps the muscle memory very active. This is great for classes 1 through 4 or 5.
Okay, but what's the realistic minimum? Because finding timetable slots in middle school, that's always the challenge.
It is. The sources suggest that 2 sessions per week is really the minimum for seeing measurable class-wide improvement over a term. If you drop below that to just 1 session a week, you're really just maintaining the skill, not transforming it.
That gives school leaders the evidence they need for timetabling.
Exactly.
So how does a curriculum maintain that structure all the way from KG readiness to board exams? It sounds like a huge pedagogical lift.
It is, which is why the progression has to be meticulous. It starts not with the alphabet, but with motor readiness.
So establishing the physical foundation, gross and fine motor warm-ups, posture, and of course the pencil grip. I know the program uses specialized tools like a Graphia or ProGrip. Why is a tool needed instead of just telling a child how to hold a pencil?
Because a proper grip isn't intuitive for all children, and a comfortable functional grip is key for endurance in long exams later on. These tools physically guide the hand into the most efficient tripod position, establishing the habit right from the start.
Once that physical foundation is stable, where does the instruction go?
It moves to letter construction using what the material calls a graphological approach. This is where one letter structurally leads to the next. So all the letters based on the C curve are taught together. It simplifies the motor learning.
The progression also covers the transition from 4-line paper to 2 lines and finally to a single line. And the sources pinpoint a key moment, the pencil-to-pen transition. They recommend it around class 5. Why so specific?
It's strategic. By class 5, a student's motor maturity should be solid. And that's right before the academic load. The sheer volume of note-taking starts to explode in middle school. Transitioning them to the pen before that happens ensures they can meet those demands with a fluent habit already in place.
So this preparation becomes critical in the secondary stages, where the focus shifts from perfect formation to high-speed fluency.
Precisely. The curriculum has to adapt. It starts training students for speed writing, efficient note-taking, even subject-specific layouts.
Like for physics derivations or chemical equations.
Exactly. The goal is to apply the refined skill where it actually generates exam scores.
Okay, so we have the curriculum and the frequency. But how does a school ensure consistency when you have, say, 50 different teachers involved?
That comes down to a comprehensive support system. There are three pillars: teacher empowerment, curriculum integration, and leadership monitoring.
Let's start with the teacher. What does empowerment look like?
It's continuous support. Teachers get that initial GREM training, which focuses on mastery. They also get demonstration classes and even teacher practice sheets to perfect their own board writing. Perfect practice by the teacher leads to perfect results from the students.
And the integration piece. How do you make sure this skill doesn't just stay in the handwriting period?
Subject teachers are brought into the loop. They're trained to reinforce the standardized script in all subject notes, assignments, and exams. If the science teacher is demanding it, the student knows it's non-negotiable.
And that consistency has to be monitored with objective feedback.
Right. And that's done using tools like GradeWrite. It's a simple 1 to 5 rubric that subject teachers use right next to the subject mark. It provides objective feedback, replacing vague comments like "must write neatly."
Finally, the accountability for leadership. How does the principal ensure the program doesn't lose steam?
That's the role the school academic advisor visits. These are monthly implementation audits. They give feedback, review progress, and meet directly with the principal. This constant oversight keeps the entire ecosystem accountable.
So let's wrap this up. What is the key strategic takeaway for you, the school leader listening to this?
The takeaway is this: a structured curriculum transforms handwriting from an inconsistent effort into a measured, school-wide academic strategy. It directly aligns with the national policy expectations for foundational literacy and competency.
And for the student, the benefit is intellectual. Legible, automatic writing frees up their mind for higher-order thinking, which is where exam scores are really earned.
Writewiz, the missing curriculum behind exam-ready writing.
The sources mention that continuity is vital, just like in sports. Given this structured progression from LKG to Class 12, what would be the cumulative impact on a student's final board exam score in terms of speed, endurance, and quality? If a school just commits to protecting those 20 minutes of practice 3 times a week for a full decade, it frames consistency not as an extra task, but as perhaps the most critical competitive academic edge you can give your students.